It's November 22nd, 2023, and you know why you're here, so let's kick this off right and introduce the players. Hey, I am Gerissar, a WoW esports aficionado.
Hey guys, I'm Bigmoran. I'm a Resto Druid enthusiast.
Hello, I'm TreesapJake, and I'm a dude playing a dude disguised as another dude.
As I call that's what I call role playing. That's how I role play.
Well, that was my
disguised as another dude. Disguised as a dude.
That it was actually, to be honest, I was originally going to go for I'm a reformed role player, but I thought I'd keep it really subtle.
When you said you're a dude inside a dude playing or no, that's the wrong way. You're dude playing a dude playing another dude. All I can think of is the Russian nesting dolls. So
definitely not inside a dude.
No.
So just want to specify that there. No, Russian doll. Yeah, exactly. You just pop. Okay, I'm just going to stop. Yeah, You know what? Just that's a good image. I'll leave it at that.
And I should actually probably have said that I am a Havoc Demon Hunter enthusiast because I started doing that this week. Why not?
You're not allowed to do that. You can't do that, Gerissar. I can't play with OP. You're not allowed. You can't do that. You can't have fun in this game.
I didn't say I was doing it well. I just said I was playing it.
Yeah. You're only allowed to prove your EP by playing the worst class ever and then only struggling to get to 1800.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. So
no fun allowed.
So what would that be then these days? Because everything's pretty viable. It looks like.
You'd have to play like Frost DK with, I don't know,
survival,
Resto Shaman, and I don't even know what's the worst melee or worst range DPS. Something Frost DK, Resto Shaman.
I would have said Devastation Evoker, but they actually kind of pump at the minute.
Yeah, I've heard rumors.
Oh my god, that's speaking of Resto Shaman. So last week I decided I was going to try and do some twos and actually try to gain rating, and I ended up playing with the old show host Winstead. He hopped on his Resto Shaman, and and then he realized that PvE gear wasn't the appropriate gear set for doing twos even at 0 rating. So then we got him some gear.
Yeah, you need that versatility for sure.
Yeah. First game he flopped over pretty hard. Like it was like I think it was like double moldy as well. They just trained him and he's like, "Okay. Yeah, I need some gear."
Yeah, it certainly helps.
Yeah. And then we just trolled the ladder because then he hopped on his Blood Death Knight and so we're playing Havoc Demon Hunter Blood DK.
Ooh. The Super Tees made a video about that.
He did.
And released it this morning. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Those pesky blood DKs. They don't let you go. You know they're very clingy.
They can be. They can be. It was fun though. It was a lot of fun. Quickly though. Did either of you guys get on the ladder at all in the last couple of days? I think Jake, I saw you were playing Wrath Classic again.
No, I actually have been playing a lot of retail and definitely an interesting. Well, I've played a lot of the last season and then came in to play the new season. I have to say it's been very interesting going up against Demon Hunters before they got nerfed and just feeling like I don't know. It was a really difficult situation where I'm both the class that I was playing where I kind of felt like it just felt really bad every time you queued into one because they were just blasting me the entire time, just non-stop high amounts of damage. And so I ended up playing with one, and it was like we won every single game because he was just having the most amount of uptime.
Yep, that sounds like what Demon Hunters were. Although you can kill them in a stun, I'm told. You just have to get them in the stun and survive all the blasting to get them into the stun.
Yeah, no, I think you got that one nailed there.
How about you, Big? Did you get on the ladder at all?
Yeah, I played Solo Shuffle last week. I haven't played this week yet, but I'll probably play over the week. I typically just play over the weekends when I want to grind, the ladder.
Mm-hmm.
Admittedly, I've been role playing, and that's not a joke. I've been actually role playing every night on Moonguard.
Oh.
Yes, I've been chatting with the locals. Are
you allowed to talk about that, or is that like what happens inside inside the inn stays at the inn?
I mean, I've definitely seen some things, but for the most part, I mean, it's just playful banter. I felt really
Cool.
bad because a Draenei ran up to me, because I'm a druid, and they're like, "Hello, kitten. Can I offer you some treats?" And I thought they were trying to be like creepy, and so I told them to never say that to me again. Turns out it's just someone who likes to feed cats. You know, that's what they roleplay. They roleplay, feeding cats. So I felt bad that I like kind of I made them feel bad about asking me if I wanted treats. So then I went in cat form and I accepted their treats.
Oh,
Because yes.
that's
But
I can kind of see, like, even if you're in cat form to begin with, I could see that. But if like I wouldn't walk up to an owlkin and ask if I could feed the kitty.
yeah,
That's
no,
kind of creepy.
it was a bit weird. I
Yeah.
also noticed, because I'm on Tichondria, so I had to get phased to Moonguard,
Mm-hmm.
and some Moonguard players really don't like Tichondria's players, which I think is really
Dude.
funny
Yep.
because Tichondrius is like the boomer PvP server. It's just like the
Yeah.
old guard players, and I don't know why they think we're all toxic or something. When I think like in reality, like the toxic PvPs are on like Storm Rage and Sargeras, and they're not on Tychon. Well, I mean, there certainly are people on Tichondrius, but
Yeah.
I just think that was really funny that they associate Tyche with the toxic PvP crowd. It's so
Yeah.
boomer.
That's actually kind of. I mean, I can think of years past where people from Titch were a bit toxic, but I think most of them have probably left. Or like you said, it's too boomer for those edgy people anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Exactly. Too boomer.
Too boomer. All right. Well, speaking of boomers, it was my turn to do need, greed, and pass. So why don't we get into that and see what we're gonna choose today.
This likely won't be a clean fight, so keep your distance, eh?
And yes, I did classify myself as a boomer. All right. So this week for the need, greed, and pass, I was thinking about how there's all these different in-game events that happen, and really a lot of them, the ones that were originally put in and still you know existing to today, have always been very North American and quite Christian centric. And so I was thinking about, with the fact that World of Warcraft is such an international community, maybe we could look at some newer possible events being added that are more international than just the ones from the States. So the first one I was thinking of was Burns' Night. So this is in respect to Robbie Burns from Scotland, and that's usually on the 25th of January. So I was thinking something Scottish themed. So obviously then the dwarves, and have a bunch of people running around listening to some Scottish poetry and literary stuff, and I don't know, eating a bunch of haggis or something like that, right?
Yeah.
The second one is Diwali, which is the Hindu festival of lights, and that's usually somewhere between September to October. So something like that. I thought that'd be pretty cool. I'm not sure. I guess you could probably get some succubi or something like that, because they kind of look Hinduish with the 6 arms or something. I don't know. Let's see what that is. And then the last one was Eid al-Fitr, which is the end of Ramadan, or the end of the fast. So similar to, I guess, in a way similar to Thanksgiving, the sit around and having big meals together with family and that. But at least this one would be not as North American centric. So I guess if they were going to add in a new event with an international theme, which one of those ones would you guys like to see added to the game? And I think I'm going to go first with you, Big.
Yeah, I think I mean I've just been Googling like the pictures this whole time. I think is it pronounced Diwali?
I'm pretty sure it's Diwali. Yeah.
Diwali.
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 Dang it.
Okay.
I said
I
it
mean
wrong.
the aesthetics of that are gorgeous, and same with the end of Ramadan. I see there's like balloons and stuff. So I'm going to need on Diwali just because it's very colorful. It looks very, I could see that being just beautiful and wow.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm gonna greed on the end of Ramadan. I don't remember how you pronounce that. Because I think, having a feast. I kind of like this idea of like having a big feast. Like and right now, if you go to outside Stormwind, there's little tables where you can sit at, right, and eat the turkey.
Yep.
And so if there's a bunch of balloons and stuff, I mean, that'd be cool. And then I'm gonna pass on Burns' day, even though I like dwarves.
You gonna pass on the haggis?
Yeah.
I don't blame you. I think most people are gonna do that. All right, how about you, Jake?
I'm actually gonna. It's sad here because fun fact about me, I lived in India for a very long time, and from the age of 7 until 15. So, and I've been to actual Diwali multiple times, and because of that, it has such a soft spot in my heart, and I'd love to see that kind of represented in WoW. I'd love to see that kind of come in, for its own sort of little event. I mean, they could easily do it. I'm gonna need Diwali just because I think Diwali is so much fun. There's also another really good one from India, which is called Holi, which is where everyone gets a load of paint, and they rub it on their face, of someone else. That would be also a really cool one to do in WoW. I think that'd be really awesome. So that'd be that's kind of like a little caveat to that. I'd love to see that as well. So those would probably be my two. I think if I'm thinking about it from a general sort of event type based one, I'm actually going to greed Burns Night because there's a lot you can do. Obviously, you've got a lot of food involved, but there's also like the ideas of poetry and kind of performance. So I think for me that would be really cool because you could do events in WoW that are kind of based on that performance wise.
Totally.
And obviously the food is a big part of like Brewfest and stuff like that. So I think it'd be a really interesting one to see what they do for that. I will then pass on Eid only because I don't know it very well. I don't know what that end is, and I don't know how well you could kind of represent the kind of like having been fasting for so long. I think that's right, isn't it? Yeah. If you fast during Ramadan and then you kind of come in and then Eid is like this big party for celebrating what you've done.
Yeah,
I think it'd be really hard to represent that in WoW in the terms of the event because obviously we just log in and we're like, oh, my character's really hungry for a very long time, which is obviously a very sort of insensitive thing to say. So I apologize, but also at the same time, I don't think that's good. You can represent it as well as the other two, in my opinion.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, and that was one of my struggles when I was trying to come up with these. But because I was thinking Ramadan itself, but I was like, how are they going to even implement Ramadan in the game? Because first of all, it's never usually it's not a set. It's not always like this month. It moves around because of the way that calendar works, if I remember correctly. But also, like, can you imagine going into a dungeon and you lay down a feast and nobody can eat it because it's Ramadan because you put it on the wrong time of day? But I thought the Eid would be pretty cool. I think I'm actually So I'm gonna need on Burns's night, only because I'm half Scottish and I have a bunch of Scottish history there. So that's one of the reasons why I picked it was because I'm selfish. So I'm gonna do that. I like the idea of having like an area where we could go and there'd be like similar to what we already see with the Thanksgiving, where there's these tables of food, but it'd all be like Scottish and haggis or something like that. Maybe have some gnome who's made a machine that horrendously drones and twiddles away some songs, essentially bagpipes, but of course it'd be mechanical. And then having people or NPCs spout off a bunch of poetry, I think would be pretty cool. So I'm gonna need on it, and I want to greed on it on the Alpha 2, but I'm gonna actually need on Diwali, because I think that'd be, like you guys said, I think it'd be just so beautiful with the way they can represent that in the game, versus a big feast at the end of Ramadan. It sounds very similar to what Thanksgiving event is already in WoW, so it would actually it'd just be another feast. So I should have thought of that a bit more before I put those in as a choice, but so be it. I guess what I will ask, again, as always, if you're listening at home, either live right now or later on the podcast, go on over to our Discord and let us know what, or even on Twitter or wherever else you want to do it. But tell us what your choices are on the Need, Greed, and Pass of which international event you'd like the devs to add to World of Warcraft. In the meantime, let's talk about the upcoming WoW PvP events.
Get in there and fight! Stop hiding!
Yes, stop hiding, get in there and fight. A couple events actually coming up. So we got the Trial Exploit community with the Bread and Circuses 3v3 tournament on the 25th. So that's just coming up this weekend. I don't know if you guys, if anybody saw, the Void.gg is hosting another solo shuffle tournament. This is going to be the 2nd and 3rd December. Are you guys gonna compete in this one? It's $10,000.
I don't think I'm gonna compete, but I'm definitely gonna watch some, or at least as much as I can of it, because I really enjoyed that tournament last time. It was, I think, the most fun I've had in watching a tournament for a while. I think we talked about that last time.
We did. Yes, you did talk about how much you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I think so. When I looked over though, so the first one, the last two they did, the first one was 5K, and that was an invitational. Then they did a 2.5K, which was a open. Anybody could sign up as long as they weren't ranked 1. This one, I don't see any of those caveats. So it looks like it's just like open free for all, so anybody can sign up, which I think is kind of cool. I think the only thing, though, would be really interesting, being the 2nd to the 3rd of December. Do you think we're going to see 4-piece by then? We should, right?
Oh, we're going to see 4-piece next week, actually.
Really?
Yeah, if you got lucky. Because I have 3-piece right now, but you can't get your 4. The way they're doing the creation catalyst this season is you get a charge every 2 weeks.
Yep.
I'm guessing I'm going to change that later on to be a charge every week. But yeah, so next week I can get tier, which I'm kind of excited for. I'm kind of curious. I'm guessing that there's going to be some major tuning immediately after the Race to World First, which is probably going to conclude in the next few days. So, I mean, if I had to guess, there's probably going to be some Demon Hunter nerfs, maybe a little bit of Outlaw Rogue nerfs, maybe some Disc Priest nerfs, but I'm less confident in, but definitely some Demon Hunter nerfs. And I think there's probably going to be a lot of Demon Hunters signing up for this tournament if I had to place my bets on what we're going to see. So I think that tournament is maybe a bit more up in the air than maybe people think it is, because there's probably a lot of tuning coming in downstream.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's gonna. There may be some people signing up thinking that their class is going to be fine, only to get it shifted from S tier down to B tier overnight.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I want to say something about Demon Hunters really quick, just because it's relevant to this conversation. But I was actually watching Maximum has his own podcast, Pod EC. And I was listening to a conversation he was having about these class reworks. And every time now that they've reworked a class or a spec, it's become insanely broken. Well, that's probably intentional, right? Because if you're a Demon Hunter who stopped playing in Season 1 or Season 2, and you're like, I'm not really feeling WoW, and then you hear that, Demon Hunters are getting reworked, you're like, that's exciting. Like, the worst possible thing is you log in and your class just sucks after a rework, So they kind of have to they're forced to make these specs really good after a rework because there's such high expectations maybe from returning players or even current players. And so I think Demon Hunters are going to be pretty good for, a decent chunk of the season, but definitely I could see some tuning in a little bit.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. It would make sense that they would do that to get players to come in or to come back and feel good about their class being reworked. I think arguably part of the reason why these classes are broken still, or broken after the reworks, is because they're given tools that, if in comparison to the classes that haven't been reworked, they're overpowered. But then once everybody gets those reworks, there's probably going to be some counters that are going to be added in to come back on the other side. So yeah.
Because it seems, Jake, it seems like shamans are due for a rework probably in the next few months. I'd guess, I'd be guessing that they'd be next on that list, or at least high up on that list of reworks. So you're going to be probably pretty broken again at some point.
Yeah,
we'll see though.
To be fair though, this is the problem. I've gone off Shaman quite considerably in the last, I think Dragonflight kind of ruined it a little bit for me. I enjoyed it in Shadowlands, and I've enjoyed it for many years. But then I love Burst as a build, but just the way that things felt so front loaded, and then just suddenly your damage became based off a kind of roulette of will I proc, will I not? Like if I proc it, you're dead kind of thing. I found that really unenjoyable. They definitely need a rework for sure. And I think there should be emphasis built on whether you use Lightning Bolt or Lava Burst, and there should be some builds on that kind of allow you to have that sort of, focus. Whatever they did to Rets, basically, do it to Shaman and make him just feel good to play again. I think I'd probably go back, but I think they were in the right direction in the way that they invented Burrow. That is like an immunity for shamans. I thought that was a really good idea. It was a very, very good idea. Although obviously it's not like a total immunity. You can still die to dots and stuff like that. But I think it'd be nice to see some form of rework. But I'm not holding out my my hopes.
Yeah, I think things are going to happen eventually. It just takes time. It'll be interesting to see if we get the War Within in a year. It'll be interesting to see how many more reworks we get between now and 10.2.7 or 11. Really, I feel like we're probably going to see less and less reworks in this expansion, and the next expansion is going to have a whack load. So
yeah, the assumption is, right, they're carrying over the talent system. This new talent system is going to be carried over, so I think they're trying to polish probably as much as they can as they go along, and then maybe focus on the new hero talents or whatever. That'd be my guess. They're trying to just make everything ready for those hero talents.
I think you're right. Just to get back on the rails, one other event that we didn't get a chance to talk about, which is a streamer, Big Donny Cowl, over on the EU. He's going to be hosting himself a dueling tournament on the 16th of December, and he's currently, there's a 200,000 gold prize pool for that, so it's in-game gold. But I'm assuming that prize pool can also be increased either by other player donations or if Donny gets more gold. So if you want, if you're on the EU and you want to have a swing at that, there you go. I think let's go into the subject of analysis though, and we can hear what Big thinks about Restoration Druids.
I'm gonna light you up, sweet cheeks.
And by Restoration Druids, I mean Treants.
Hey, knock it off.
Sorry, man. How does it feel to have a bunch of NPCs do your healing, though?
Hey, they don't do all my healing. They just do 30% of my healing, okay? Like that. But I actually, no, joking aside, I love Treants. And I don't love them because they're overpowered. I don't care, that they're a really good heal. I just like pressing them. I don't know. It's a fun little ability to press. It's like Druid has kind of always. It's one of those specs that kind of suffers from this problem where you have this dead space in your rotation, and because you're a class that's entirely, or you're a spec that's entirely built around maintenance. You're maintaining hots, and sometimes you don't have to press a button in a global. You can just run around. But to me, that always felt a bit kind of weak or lame. And so just like being able to just press this kind of sort of like off global thing and, do something at least kind of in the moment when you're running around and pushing in and, repositioning. I mean, that feels pretty nice. It's nice to have this extra thing to kind of keep up. It's, I like to think of druids kind of like farmers, right? They're just tending to their crops, which in this case are their healing over time effects. And they're just kind of making sure that they all, grow nicely. And, the treants are like having a, I guess having like a farm animal to help you. They're just there to help you do the work, and it's nice. It's nice in some ways.
Oh man, I'm suddenly having like you like envisioning your treants kind of like this being Charlotte's Web or something like that, where like you got the pig and the horse and the everybody's talking or something.
Yeah,
that's funny. So it's interesting though. Like how, I guess there's a lot of people that are really have been complaining about how strong Restoration Druid has felt to play against. Now how do you feel about that though? Like what's is that a fair assessment? Like are they like S+ tier or have they been kind of reduced a bit now with 10.2?
Well, I think there's two ways a healer can be overpowered. There is the Holy Paladin and Holy Priest sort of way of being overpowered, which is to block your damage with cooldowns. Like Holy Paladins are just like a wall of CDs you have to go through one by one until you're able to score a kill. Holy Priests are kind of the same way. You're just fighting against their cooldowns. Resto Druids are kind of this other way healers can be broken, which is you're fighting against their healing over time, like their healing output. It's a battle against healing output, and Druids are notorious, like when they're good, they're notoriously efficient at single target healing. So you kind of feel a bit walled out against a Druid, and you don't know what to do because like against a Holy Paladin, working around cooldowns kind of makes sense. It's like something you can look at on your UI. You're like, oh, they have Blessing and Sacrifice still. That's something I need to work through. Druids, you don't really have that thing you can like look at. They're just pumping heals the whole time. And so I think that's kind of frustrating for players is they just kind of get walled out by healing.
Yeah, I felt it. I'll be damaging something, and on the nameplate I have buffs that show up there, and I just see like hot after hot after hot like start stacking up over top of their nameplate, and finally I get to a point where I'm like, I'm not even doing it, so I just move on to another target because I'm not doing anything.
Yeah,
and I think a lot of people kind of feel like that.
And I think Druids can be very oppressive if you don't sort of exploit some of their weaknesses. Like if you don't know how to exploit a Druid's weakness, which is like swapping and even going on the Druid, it can be really frustrating because like especially in 2v2, the way Druids play in 2v2 is they just hot their partners and the Druid just runs away the entire time. Yep. Maybe they'll push in for like a rake stun into a clone, but for the most part, the Druid is just running away, avoiding damage, and you can't really do anything about it because you can't hit the Druid because they're a million yards away, and you can't kill their partners because their partners have a bunch of hots on them. So it's just a really, it feels really lame. It's really frustrating. I understand.
How about you, Jake? Do you run into that? Like, what do you do when you're facing a Restoration Druid?
Mostly cry. Yeah, no, I crawl into a little ball and rock myself, hoping that at some point the person I'm hitting will die. To be honest with you, I think I've had some success recently into Resto Druids. I feel like when I'm playing like Destro, for example, you very much can kick a Resto Druid on regrowth or something along those lines when treants aren't out, and pretty much global someone, depending on the damage combination and what class you're playing with in 3s. From 2's point of view, I haven't really done much, so I wouldn't know, but they feel pretty gross, especially if you're playing into Resto Druid, Survival Hunter, or something like that. Resto Druid, Assassination Rogue, those sort of comps, again, feels very much like BFA Season 4 to me. They're just unkillable. They just do so much damage, and it's just horrific. But in 3s, definitely can beat them for sure. But they are strong, and I feel like obviously, we've had some hot fixes come through that I'm sure we'll talk about, but for the most part, I haven't had too bad a time.
Okay. All right. So I'm the only one that's just the bad player then. And
No, I think the thing is that majority of the people wouldn't really know what to do unless you've played a lot with a Resto Druid, which I have done. I've done a lot. I've played a lot with Resto Druids, so you kind of understand where the limitations are, and in general, with the general sort of not just the balance, but kind of like just how the class works. And I think that's kind of a thing. You just need to kind of know how things work in order to beat it.
So going back to our farming metaphor, we have all these crops we're wanting to grow. Druids struggle when there's a flash flood. When things go bad really quick, that's when druids kind of struggle, because it's a maintenance heavy class, and so you kind of need to always be playing ahead. You're sort of that, even though I think this metaphor is just way overblown. I think WoW is just like chess, right? Like you have to think ahead, and I think that's definitely true with Resto Druid. You have to be very proactive in how you play. You're not, these holy paladin and holy priest type healers. They're more reactive with how they play. They're reacting to the damage after it's happened. Druids, for the most part, they don't want the damage to ever happen in the first place, and so they're blocking it with heals.
Yeah.
And so, I think the key for understanding how to beat Druid is to understand that they, if you can put them at a global cooldown disadvantage, then you're doing something right. Which is why effects like the Evoker AoE Purge and Hunter Trank Shot, like those are really difficult to deal with as a Druid, because they put you multiple globals behind, and that's not a place you want to be as a Druid. You don't want to ever be behind.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I'm over here on my Demon Hunter popping off one hot at a time, and it's going back up as fast as the cooldown comes off of that. Well, so I think everybody kind of understands, like, you have all your different hots. You have different talents that boost the healing. I think there's a couple of talents you can take that will almost do like a beacon of light and help you share heals across others, right? So why don't you run through, like, I guess, what are the key talents that you're picking, and what are the ones that are kind of like, well, it can be this one or that one. Like, what are the option spaces there?
I think there's a lot you can do on the Druid tree itself. There's a lot of different paths you can take, and I think that's what's really... I really like the Druid tree currently. The one complaint being that stupid talent that every healer has, where they have to talent into their Dispel, like the Curse and Poison Dispel. I don't like that part of the tree, and I don't think anyone does. But on the Druid tree, you can kind of specialize in cat form stuff, bear form tanky stuff, or like boomkin stuff, and I think that's really cool. And I don't think there's... the way I tend to build my Druid talents is I try to get a little bit of everything, because that to me just feels like the most like authentic Druid experience, when you can just have all these playstyles at once. Typically, people though go maybe more cat form type stuff for 2v2, usually bear form and moonkin stuff for 3v3, and yeah. But there's a lot you can do on the Druid tree. And so it's kind of hard to say what a must pick is, other than like Cyclone, obviously. Like, you want Cyclone, you want Bash, or very rarely you want Roar. And then Mass Entanglement is really good right now into Demon Hunters, Unholy DKs, and Demo Warlocks, anything with a lot of pets, or anything that gets owned by roots. Then on the restoration tree, there's also a few different routes you can go. The core of Resto Druid healing is Life Bloom, which is at the very top of the tree, and there's a talent in the middle of the tree that increases the effectiveness of mastery with Life Bloom. So your Life Bloom counts as 3 stacks of your mastery with this talent, or 4 stacks, I'm sorry, with this talent, which is pretty crazy. So that you have some talents that increase your hot, and that's one of them. Adaptive Swarm is really good, carrying over a Covenant ability from the previous expansion. The more recent trend in Druid builds, other than Treants, which are a relatively new addition, is going back to tree form. This is something that Druids started doing at the end of last season, and I think has been pretty much universally adopted this season. Going into tree form requires you to drop Germination, which is your additional rejuvenation hot.
Yep.
But tree form is just so good right now because it interacts with your treants. Every time you pop tree form, you automatically spawn a treant every 10 seconds, and then every time a treant expires, it reduces the cooldown of tree form. So there's kind of a synergistic interaction right there. And there's also this build that's kind of hard to explain, but it focuses on verdancy healing, which is your efflorescence. So the mushroom you put on the ground.
Yep.
You can do a lot of healing with that build, but the only problem is it requires people to stand in the mushroom, which there's some matchups where that's possible, like in a melee cleave mirror. Most of the time, like every player is going to be in the same area. But if you're playing like solo shuffle, I think that build is just really bad because you're moving that mushroom like crazy. I mean, you can't really keep it on people, especially if you play with like a hunter or a mage. Like there's no way they're ever going to stand in that thing. So that's kind of a weird build.
That sounds actually pretty good for RBGs though, especially if you have the Resto Druid at the scrum.
Yeah, I could see it being really good in RBGs because it's really good in Mythic Plus, and it's a huge part of Druid healing in 5-man content. So presumably it'd be good in RBGs for teamfight healing. And yeah, I mean, just the only problem is it requires people to stand. And like, talk to any shaman and they'll tell you that it's difficult for people to stand in one place. They don't like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, the Druid builds, it's changed over the expansion, and which is kind of fun. I mean, every season has kind of had its own little flavor, and I can't complain. And yeah, it's I think it's in a good spot right now for sure.
Cool. Just correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe I was looking at some old trees because I mean 10.2 just drop out. Some of the guides are still catching up or whatever. But it looks like some of the trees I was looking at, none of the resto builds take the capstones on the druid tree, and only some, maybe 1 or 2 on the resto tree.
Yeah, I mean, at the beginning of the expansion, people were taking Protector of the Pack, which stored your healing and buffed Moonfire damage, and they're just using that to like kill totems, basically. Gave you a big Moonfire every now and then, which you could just snipe stuff with. Heart of the Wild is kind of a dead talent now because there's a PvP talent that they added in 10.2 called Call of the Elder Druid, which automatically procs Heart of the Wild for 15 seconds when you shift into a combat shapeshift form. So that just basically means cat form, boomkin form, or bear form. You automatically get Heart of the Wild for 15 seconds, and then this can only happen once every minute. So that completely removed the need at all to ever spec into Heart of the Wild. And then Nature's Vigil got nerfed, I believe, last season.
Yeah.
So, and it wasn't that amazing to begin with. It was kind of it was good. It was good in solo shuffle and like these melee cleave mirrors where you could just pop tree. What you do is you'd pop tree form, pop Nature's Vigil, and you just pump healing, and the healing would be converted to damage to nearby targets. So it kind of made sense playing it in melee cleaves. But nowadays, it's you don't pick that. There's just better ways to budget your points.
Yeah, you use that point somewhere else more important.
Yeah.
What about into the PvP talents though? You mentioned Call of the Elder Druid, which is pretty new.
Yeah.
Are there any like, is that like a must have, or is that like circumstantial?
So pretty much the must-have is Keeper of the Grove, which is the Tranquility immunity, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. If a druid pops Tranquility, they're immune during its channel. There is there is a build that of druid that plays without Tranquility, which is really YOLO, but that would be the only time you wouldn't play Keeper of the Grove, but 99% of the time you're playing that talent just because it's so good for immuning CC or immuning damage. It's really really functional.
Cool.
The talent that's kind of soft locked beyond that is Focus Growth. Just gives you more Life Bloom healing. Life Bloom's your pretty much your main heal, so that's always good. And then your third choice, you have a lot of options. And I think a lot of people right now are playing with that Call of the Elder Druid PvP talent as their kind of default third pick.
Okay.
Because one of its effects, so one of the effects of Heart of the Wild is when you shift into Moonkin form, the cast time on Cyclone is reduced by 30 seconds. So you can go Boomkin form and you're casting really fast clones with this PvP talent. And a lot of people have fun with that. And it's good in 2v2 as well if you want to do damage with it, because Heart of the Wild also boosts your damage. So that's like a third sort of maybe soft-locked PvP talent. And then beyond that, you just have a bunch of situational stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, there's Thorns, of course, which I like Thorns. I've always liked Thorns. It's really good if you're playing into double melee, or even in 2v2 against a single melee. It's a nice button to press. Does a lot of damage, and it's kind of like a pseudo defensive cooldown. You press Thorns on someone, and the enemy doesn't want to attack that person anymore.
Yeah, usually makes them back off for at least a little bit.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people get frustrated at Thorns, and I can see why. And then
just don't kill yourself when you.
Yeah, exactly. That's the trick. The other talent that's pretty situational is Reactive Resin, which is your quote unquote dispel protection. And that's just pretty good into priests and mages to prevent them from spam dispelling. The way it works is every time a hot is removed, it adds a stack of reactive resin to the enemy, and which slows their movement speed. And after 3 stacks, they get silenced, which sounds really good and sounds like that would be really powerful into a lot of different things. But it's only good into priests and mages, because shamans play with greater purge typically, so they're only purging 2 hots at a time, and their purge has a cooldown, so you never really get an opportunity to silence shamans when you play this talent. It's kind of funny. And then, of course, evokers. It seems like it would be good against evokers, but I don't think so. I think it's kind of a bait talent, because evokers can purge your hots all in one go, but at that point the damage is already done. Like you're sad. Like this reactive resin isn't making you feel any better because you silence them for 3 seconds. It's like, oh dang, like my hots are gone.
Yeah, that's just too much of a reward to that risk, I think. Or it's pretty low risk and pretty high reward if you're able to take off all the hots and eat a 3-second silence. Like that's
it's not an eye for an eye whatsoever. It's like it's an eye for a leg. like or it's whatever.
Yeah. How about if I take your eye and I or how about if I take your heart and I'll give you an eye?
Yeah, exactly, right. It's not a fair exchange. And then
sorry.
There's
chat's having fun right now.
Oh, okay, good. Don't believe anything Bigmoran says. Foxy Llama. Oh my god. I met Foxy Llama at BlizzCon. He was streaming in the venue. He was being really cool with his camera, talking to chat. Yeah. So the other talent that's kind of pretty good too, it's kind of a slept-on talent, is Disentanglement.
Yeah.
That Efflorescence removes all snares from friendly targets, and more importantly, its mana cost is reduced by 40%. So they buffed that at some point. It wasn't always 40% mana reduction. And so that's actually really good if you can play that Verdancy build I was talking about. You pretty much want to pick that talent because that makes your Efflorescence, which is typically an expensive spell, cheaper than your Rejuve. So it's a really good PvP talent if you can get value out of Efflorescence. And I think it's pretty slept on. Because Efflorescence can be a lot of your healing.
Yeah. So you get a cheaper heal that's more powerful than your cheap heal, and it also removes all the snares in that. That sounds really good, especially considering all like the between Hamstring and Chains of Ice and oh geez, all the other slows that you got out there. Like that actually sounds really good.
Yeah, no, it's definitely insanely strong, and I don't think many people even know it's good because I don't think people know that it was buffed.
Probably not.
I don't know when it was buffed.
Probably not. I don't see it even in the yeah, like even on the Wowhead guide is like Disentanglement, really cool idea for an effect, but ultimately, and then the sentence ends, so it doesn't even say why.
Yeah, so it looks like it was buffed first in 10.15 and then again in 10.2, but prior to that, it was kind of a useless PvP talent. But now it's good. Now it's really good.
Yeah. All right. I like it. Are there any other? You said there's quite a few situational ones. Are the other situational ones there, like Entangling Bark or?
I don't think that's ever been played, like seriously, since its inception. Some people like Deep Roots. I think that's kind of a cheat. Like that's a good talent if you want to cheese someone with like a Duster Warlock or something. Like the only time I've ever used Deep Roots is when I was playing 2v2 with a Warlock, and I just root a warrior, and my Warlock would bolt into them, and the root wouldn't break, and I just reroute them once it did. Like it just increases the threshold that your root breaks, so you can just pump damage into a rooted target. And it's really cheesy, kind of hard to make use out of it. With most comps. High Winds is also, rest in peace, High Winds. That was a really, really good talent at the beginning of the expansion, but it has been subsequently nerfed quite a bit. So it's not as juiced up as it used to be. Used to be a really, really good PvP talent, but not so much anymore.
That's too bad. All right.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess we've talked about all the PvP talents and the regular talents. Let's move to the what I consider is the most important. Your little specific, interesting little bit. The tier set. Now, can you walk us through the tier set? Are you looking at sort of like a 2-piece? Looking at 4-piece? What's the kind of goal for Resto Druids in this season?
Oh, it's definitely going to be a 4-piece angle for sure. The 2-piece and 4-piece are both really good. The 2-piece just makes your treants better. It makes them splash heal. With the treants, they cast Nourish. They just spam cast Nourish, and I think it makes the Nourish cleave to 2 additional random targets, I believe.
Yeah.
The 4 set is, I think, utterly potentially crazy. I haven't played with it, but it's going to be probably really broken. I think on the PTR, that 4 set, so casting Regrowth also makes you automatically cast Nourish at 200% effectiveness is the 4 set bonus. So on the PTR, that bonus little Nourish was healing for a ridiculous amount. I remember Mystical took a picture of it. It was like 400k or something. So basically, every time you cast a Regrowth, you just automatically cast another 400k heal. But I'm sure it's nerfed in PvP, right? It's gotta be. So even if it's just 100k, that's still really insane.
Yeah.
If it's 200k, it's utterly broken. If it's 400k, like, that is way too broken. I don't know the numbers on it. I'm sure I can look it up somehow, but I'm sure I could actually look it up from the PVE logs, because I think all the PVEers currently have their force set. But yeah, that's going to represent a lot of healing for sure, especially because tree form makes your regrowth instant. So, and you can play this other talent, which gives you more clear casting procs, which I think is what people are going to do. And so they're just going to be RNG cleave healing like crazy on a druid. And tree form is just going to be crazy, utterly insane.
Yeah. It's just a little broken, not too much.
It's the I mean, what do you think about this, Big? I mean, it's this is the question. Do you think this NPC healing, or just NPCs doing certain things for your class, do you think that's going to lead to good game design, or lead the game to be fun again?
I was a very big advocate for not having NPC healing or NPC interactions in this game, and it actually started from my class envy against Resto Shamans all the way back in Cataclysm, because Healing Stream Totem, it might have been Miss Pandaria too. Healing Stream Totem healed for a lot back in Mop and Kata, and I was always really jealous. I was like, this stupid shaman can drop this totem and it can heal more than like most of my hots. That's how I felt at the time. And you know my opinion right now about the other two classes I tend to give the most hate to are BM Hunters and Demo Warlocks. I've always, if I'm not playing Druid, I like to play Mage.
Yep.
And I've never been a fan of Hunters, and I've never been a fan of their pets chasing me and doing a lot of damage while the hunter, is running around a pillar. So I definitely have a tendency to not like NPC healing, but it's like it's like I'm Frodo with the ring. I have all this. I have this power I can tap into, and it's very addicting. Like, even though I hate it, I hate when other people are doing it. When I get to do it, it's really fun, So that's the problem with I think mechanics like that, these auto healing, auto damage mechanics, is I think they can be really fun. I know some people have expressed sort of this depression you get when playing Demo Warlock, though, where it doesn't feel like you're doing anything. And maybe that's different now, but I think especially at some points of the expansion, some warlocks would say like, well, I summon all my pets, but I don't really do much as the warlock. I'm just kind of, my shadow bolts don't hit very hard. My demon bolts don't really hit very hard. It's most of my damage is coming from other things. Fortunately, with Treants, I don't quite have that feeling because they're not doing all of my healing. Again, as I said, they're probably doing like 30%. But if they were doing more, if they're doing like 50% of my healing, then I might not like it. But I think right now they're at the right threshold where they are very impactful, but they don't feel like you're sort of tied to them in any way. I hope that makes sense.
No, it definitely does. I definitely understand how that the concept of that actually in reality it's annoying when other people have these things and you're like, God, I wish my class had that. I just and the reason why I brought it up is just I feel like I'm quite worried about that being a game design choice going forwards. I'm worried that there's going to be certain things in the future, like augmentation worried me, but just the idea of having something that just spawns and just does damage. I mean, I guess this is been the big complaint about demonology and BM hunters, as you mentioned, for such a long time, which is just that there are things that are just there that just don't leave you. You can't outplay them. They're just always on you. Like, you maybe more so on demo you can outplay them, but like BM hunters, they're just there. They can't leave. There's a stampede of them. They're just, it's impossible. There's no outplay potential when there's something just constantly on you doing a high consistent amount of damage, and then also its own burst on top. And I think I think I worry that in the future we will continue this trend, and that this will kind of be what the game is like. And it's about who has the bigger NPC cooldown. So hopefully that isn't a thing. I'd like to see some change on that, but it's just, I don't know. I'm not sure. I like innovation, but I just don't think this is the way forward from a competitive point of view.
What's funny is something kind of reverse has happened for melee DPS over the years. Back, for instance, in Warlords of Draenor, I'm sure you remember before Outlaw was Outlaw, it was Combat Rogue. And a lot of people complained about Combat Rogue, and for good reason. But I think one of the things that was uniquely good about Combat Rogue, and this is a little history quiz. Can you guess what your number one damage was as Combat Rogue? It was your white hit, yeah. It was your melee attacks. That was the number that on the scoreboard, that was the thing that was doing the majority of your damage. Your auto swings. So it's kind of interesting that at different points of the game, like they have shifted damage profile. Like right now, I think melee attack damage for rogues is probably abysmally low, especially for like sub. But in the past, I mean, melee kind of had this unique advantage where as long as they were white hitting someone, they were doing a lot of DPS. They're doing like 50% of the damage, and like that was even more extreme, like back in TBC, for instance, when you had less energy to work with. Your white hits were a huge source of your damage. So I definitely think that there's some balance between there's some sweet spot where you can't have all of your damage or healing coming from automatic sources, but you can't have none of your damage and healing coming from automatic sources. I think that's the key difference. Is that's the thread that the developers need to figure out, is where with these classes like Demo Warlock, BM Hunter, Resto Druid, even Shaman with totems, like where do you draw that line? And yeah, I think Resto Druids right now are at that sort of limit. That Grove Guardians doing 30% of your healing. Okay, like it probably just shouldn't do any more. It should, but maybe not. But don't make it like do significantly less too. Like kind of sweet spot it in some area, and I think that feels good as a player.
So I'm curious though, like for your case, you're saying 30%, and obviously that's a kind of a ballpark number. But is that doing 30% because you're good at the class and you're able to still pump out a bunch of heals on your own? Like, if I'm not so good, and let's say my my presses per minute are kind of low, would it be safe to say that I'd have the treants doing more healing than what I'm actually putting out, or maybe on a more like a 50-50, just because they're actually carrying me?
Yeah, I mean, the worse you are at healing, the more I guess more jammed your healing rotation is going to be, like your healing breakdown is going to be. So if you're not a good druid, for instance, your healing breakdown might be treants at 40% of your healing, maybe. But if you're a good druid who kind of spreads out their hots and in a a good way, an efficient way, you're going to have less overall treant healing. I think that's kind of definitely that's something true with I think other classes besides druid is the better you are at your rotation, the more sort of I guess diverse the abilities are.
Yeah. Well, the less impactful these NPCs are.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I don't mind treants so bad because they can die. Same which is like shaman totems, they can die. How resilient are treants though? Like can they die? Like they're not. I can't remember ever one shotting them.
Well, they just nerfed their HP I think by 66% in this.
Okay.
Yeah, yesterday. I'm pretty sure that's number they landed on, but I mean I haven't played since then. I mean prior to that, no. I mean druids, yeah, 66%. you never really killed a trees. I mean, you can CC them. That was really good. Like, if a mage could ring them or priest could fear them while also fearing the druid. I mean, that's really good. I would guess that people can kill them quite easily now. I mean, it's what's funny is like people kill like Fell Obelisk and War Banner and Healing Stream, Healing Tide Totem, and I'm guessing now just the natural progression is they're going to start killing treants. The weak auras enthusiasts are going to be adding treants to their weak auras and play an air horn whenever one spawns. They're just going to tactically nuke it. So.
I can see that. I feel like with a 66% nerf though, and I hadn't, or I'd only seen that recently on the hotfixes, but I guess with that, like most of the melees won't have to worry because they'll just probably AoE cleave them down to begin with. Same with a bunch of classes have that splash over. It'll probably just kill them anyway. So, all right. I think what about we talked about all the talents. We talked about the gear, at least the tier set. For the rest of the gear, though, what stats are you looking for?
You're typically wanting as much mastery as you possibly can get, and as much haste as you possibly can get.
Okay.
And right now, gearing is itemization is kind of awkward because the gear that's available always has versatility on it, and so. This is why I'm not too concerned about these recent druid nerfs that they did, because druids scale really well with secondary stats that are not versatility. And so even though they might have nerfed druids yesterday, they're just going to get stronger and stronger as the season progresses because they're going to get more mastery and haste because of crafted gear. So yeah, I'm not concerned at all. But yeah, you definitely want as much mastery and haste as you can possibly squeeze in. I mean, going above 30 to 40% haste seems a bit going over 40% haste seems a bit excessive. And mastery, I don't know what the values are going to be this season, but I'm going to guess it's like 25% mastery is going to be what people land at, somewhere in that range.
Okay.
But yeah,
actually seems low.
Well, the druid mastery is really strong. 25% is for every hot you have on the target takes an additional 25% more healing. And so you add 2 hots, I believe that's 50% more heal. I don't know if it's additive or multiplicative. So there's a reason why it's low because it's really strong. And if it were hot,
does it take like a lot? Sorry, I cut you off there. Does it take a lot of points then to like get each percent, like in comparison to, let's say, versatility and haste then?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
But yeah, that's for a reason.
Yeah. Okay.
If it was the same weight as haste, oh my god, druids you couldn't kill any. Like they would definitely be S+ tier.
That's what I was like, 25%, and you're saying that that's really good. I'm like, that sounds really low compared to the mastery and haste that I have on other classes. Sheesh.
And actually, that's a conversation in itself. I'm sure you've seen maybe some tweets. I think I saw Markers tweet about it recently. That the fact that Resto Druid mastery is so strong, and the fact that it sort of incentivizes you to maintain your hots and be this little farmer means that druids typically don't take any risks. So that's why druids play at these pillars, is because their mastery is so strong, and you don't want to you basically want to keep your mastery as high value as possible. The way you do that is by never letting your hots fall, which means never taking CC, which means never taking risks. So it's there's been chatter like, oh, they should redesign Resto Druid Mastery. I don't know if that's going to be possible because it's probably such a fundamental part of the PvE game that I don't see that changing. But yeah, mastery is king. That's all you need to know.
Okay, I guess just following up on that, I'm guessing like you were talking about crafting gear and stuff like that. So are you picking only select gladiator gear or conquest gear with haste mastery? Obviously you're doing your tier set. What about in the crafted section and embellishments? What Like, I don't. Do you worry about what's the? Is it precog where if you duplicate
Yeah,
kick, you get free casts?
yeah. I think it's always good to have precog just in your back pocket as a healer. And it's really good in any matchup where there's a ranged kick,
Mm-hmm.
especially against like shamans and hunters. It's really good against
Okay.
mages as well. So it's good to just have that, but it's not your main embellishment. Your main embellishment so far has been that blue silken lining mastery bonus, because again,
Huh.
mastery is your best stat.
Of course.
Now there are 2 new embellishments this season, and they don't seem that amazing just on paper, but maybe they're good. There's one that has a chance for your spells to give your partners extra versatility, and then there's a different one that gives your partners a different secondary stat, like a random secondary stat.
Hmm.
But the values seem kind of low on those, so I don't know if that's going to be better than mastery. I highly doubt it, but it's probably going to be mastery and then having a pocket precog on one of your pieces just to have that when you need it.
That makes sense. Yeah, I've seen a few classes use that blue silk. I didn't even know they had new embellishments in the game.
Yeah, there's a few of it. There's a few new crafted pieces too. I don't think there's any for leather wearers. I mean, I could be wrong about that, but I think there's like a new plate helmet or something.
Yeah.
I don't play plate classes, so I don't know. But
Okay.
same as always.
Yeah, same. Okay. And I guess with some of the growth in races and that, is there any change in bis racials, or it's still night elf and what's the horde one?
Tauren.
Tauren, yeah.
Yeah, Night Elf is just overall the best racial in PvP right now, like hands down. It's so good, and it's always been really good as a druid.
Yeah.
I think if you go to like Drustvar and you look at the race breakdown for druids, it's like overwhelmingly Night Elf.
Yeah.
Tauren is fine. There's nothing wrong with Tauren. It's just it's not Shadow Meld. You know, that's a problem with Tauren.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the problem with every race right now is that they're just not Night Elf. So yeah, that's definitely good. I think it'd be fun to experiment with some of the other ones. Like I want to play a Coltiran Druid really bad. Just being able to knock people, I think sounds fun. What else? I mean, High Mountain Tauren, that's kind of silly, but again, kind of interesting. Troll Druid, I have a soft spot in my heart for Troll Druid.
Really?
Yeah, because I used to play it. I used to play Troll exclusively. I don't know. It's just
But what, the
it's not
mini
really.
list?
Yeah, it's not really useful these
Yeah.
days. I mean, maybe it's good for boomkins, but I don't. I mean, again, after they made it so you can queue cross faction, there's
Yeah.
pretty much no reason if you want to play competitively to play anything other than Shadow Meld. So
Actually, it makes me
that's
wonder then if you if you elder and as you get your super
oh
fast and then you mini lust to get like what would be the
oh
cast time on the cyclone for that then?
that'd be really wow, we might be reinventing the meta. But actually, it'd be insane for damage because your wrath cast would just be like almost
Oh yeah.
instant, pretty much. You could just spam them in Moonkin form,
Oh my.
and there's this talent called Master Shapeshifter, which when you wrath in Moonkin form, you generate mana.
Yep.
So you'd be getting your mana back really quickly with that combo.
I wonder if Foxy Llama's still watching. Maybe he'll go test that. It's
Foxy Llama would be the type of person to play a troll druid. I could see that.
Me too, actually. All right. Well, now that we're done theory crafting, I guess I know Jake, you like to talk strategy stuff. Do you wanna talk about the comps and stuff?
Yeah, no, I do. You know me, I actually love strategy. So I think we could probably skip the comps. Like they're just pretty much busted and everything, right? big. I mean, we don't even need to talk about that. They're just working everything, right? Like that's just there is nothing that Resto Druids cannot do. Am I right or am I wrong?
I mean, 2v2, like, you can pretty much play with anything in 2v2, I guess. I can't think of well, I mean, obviously there's some DPS that you want to be playing with more than others. Probably Outlaw, like Rogue is, I think, the class I'm most comfortable playing with in 2v2. A lot of Druids like playing with Warriors, Demon Hunters. You know, just pretty much put a Druid with any high damage sustained melee, and it's going to be good. There, you can even play with casters as a Druid in 2v2, but I think that's just strictly worse. Could play Resto Druid Arcane Mage if you want to bore people to death. You know, that's definitely an option. Playing with a Warlock is always really fun. Druid Lock is, you know, something a comp that I've always enjoyed. Some people used to play Druid Shadow Priest, which I would not recommend right now. It just seems like you're going to have a bad time. And then Druid Evoker seems weird, but maybe it could work.
You're forgetting Resto Druid Ellie as well, which is a big comp.
Yeah. Again, if you want to bore people, I can't imagine that's you're gonna have dampening games no matter what. I think as that comp, I don't know.
Not always. I mean, as someone that has played that comp for at least 4 or 5 expansions, when they added Lasso, actually, I'm sorry, so BFA is probably the better time for that. But when I think that was when Lasso got added, but Lasso was a game changer because you were able to basically like lasso the kill target, clone the other one, and then just blast them. I mean, that's what we used to do. We used to pretty much like double CC, lock down the other one. My Druid comes over and helps me, and we used to blast them. You know, like we absolutely used to crush them. So that was always a really good. And you kind of rinse and repeat, and it sort of work every 30 seconds. And you'd get a trinket or something like that at some point. But that was actually really fun. It was a fun comp. Didn't necessarily bore anyone. I could definitely win in 5 minutes, but I think nowadays maybe.
Actually, no. Thinking about it, with the new Heart of the Wild talent, you could probably make that. You could probably have some quick games. With that, Bash cloning one person, lassoing the other, going Moonkin form, and bamming Wrath. Like, you could probably do a lot of damage, for sure. And I don't know if LA Shamans are still playing what's that totem called? The Sky Fury totem. But that would be, I mean, I could see you doing some insane damage as a Druid with Sky Fury totem. For sure. So actually maybe you're onto something. And now the cogwheels are turning in my head.
That actually sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah. 3v3, I mean, yeah, you can play a lot of different things. I know Rogue Mage right now is a pretty popular pick for Resto Druids on EU. I don't think so much on NA, but you know, eventually. Mage Lock also seems to be really good right now with Resto Druid. There's probably a plethora of melee comps you can play. I know some people were playing like Ret Paladin Marks Hunter Resto Druid last season. I mean, that's probably still decent. I know Rets kind of aren't as hot this season compared to last, but I think that's just because Demon Hunters seem insanely strong. I mean, I know DH Boomy is a really strong comp, and maybe on paper it seems like you wouldn't want a Druid, but a Resto Druid with that as well, but I'm sure you could make that work. I'm sure that's actually really good. So yeah, I mean, you typically, though, you don't want to play things where you have 2 targets that can take a lot of damage all the time. That's, I think, where you run into some trouble. A good example of a comp like that might be something like Warlock Survival Hunter, like Affliction Warlock Survival Hunter, like something where both classes can just get tunneled and take a lot of damage the entire game, and I don't think that's good. You don't have really much utility, much support. So, and I wouldn't recommend playing with like Devastation Evokers, but I'm sure it would work in the right comp because they also take a lot of damage. But yeah, throw a druid in with most things. It's going to be a good comp. I mean, that seems to be the trend these days. If something is really broken, then it's going to be good in almost every single situation. Like Demon Hunter right now, I'm sure you could throw it. Like I'm sure every 3v3, every specs best 3v3 comp is just like a DH with a Resto Druid, and that's probably pretty decent.
Legit, yeah, no, it genuinely is. I think that is actually genuinely what everyone's best spec is like to play with. You always seem to have like the best outcome when you're playing with a class or a spec that can just destroy people AoE all the time. 500k hunts, 250k Legion decrees. I mean, it's just gross.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think augmentation was kind of the version of that last season where you just threw any melee with a augmentation evoker. It was a good comp, and most melee they sort of gravitated towards this broken thing. So
Yeah.
I'm sure you can do the same thing with Druid.
Yeah, usually when you have something super strong, that'll happen. I'm not seeing many Resto Druids on the rated battleground ladders, though. I'm guessing that's because they don't have the counters that like Mistweaver, Prez Evoker have.
Yeah, I think again it seems kind of unintuitive potentially, but the strength of Druid is their single target healing.
Mm-hmm.
And over the years, I think what's happened is AoE healing has become weaker for Druids, and so it's kind of harder to slot them into an RBG group where on some teamfight maps you need a lot of AoE healing, where monks can do disc priests historically have been able to do that really well. Preservation evokers can do that pretty well. And they all, I mean, more importantly, like those healers, like I think holy paladins are also kind of a stronghold in our always have a place in RBGs because they have such good cooldowns.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Druid doesn't really have good cooldowns for RBGs and doesn't really offer much compared to the other healers, other than Mark of the Wild. But you can get that from a Boomkin, and that just does the same thing. So yeah, not really RBGs aren't, I think, good for Druids.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry for jumping in there, Jake.
No, please do. I definitely think that's more than you know what, Gerissar? Yeah, that's actually more than fine. You're allowed to jump in. I'm giving you the permission right now, live on air. Moving swiftly on from that before I don't. I mean, yeah, I think I might die at some point from I don't know, like a missile sent from Canada. Anyway,
We
so
don't
quick
have
question then.
like
Sorry, flying moose.
Okay, fair.
I was about to say meese as well. That's how tired I am. I was like, "Oh, you're gonna be flying meese?" I don't know.
Yeah,
that's the plural of moose, isn't it? Anyway, so to be honest, we've already kind of touched on how do you beat and how do you defeat and how do we kill Resto Druids? What would you say is the definitive answer? Like if you were to 1v1, like let's say your partner is off fighting someone, the other enemy's healer, you've got a class or a spec on you at the minute. Like how would they kill a Resto Druid 1v1?
Mm-hmm. To kill a Resto Druid 1v1, you have to bait them. You have to pretend like you're killing their partner, so the Druid peeks out in human form, and then you go to Druid. You want to, again, Druids are little farmers, and their crops can only get ruined by very quick and catastrophic events. So you wanna go fast. You never want to tell a Druid you're coming. You want to catch them by surprise. That's how you defeat a Resto Druid in hand-to-hand combat.
So we don't RSVP before we come knocking on the farm door.
No, you don't. You don't tunnel down a Druid. You blast in. Like you come in like a wrecking ball. That's how you defeat a Druid. Don't force it. Just try to startle them. I don't know. make them instantly scared. Oh, also one more thing. If you can force their trinket and you can force bark skin, that's really good. You're really happy.
Yeah.
Then I mean you also want to force trank, but you can, outside of bark skin and trinket, they're very, 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 very vulnerable on stuns. As long as you don't let them go bear form, which is why you have to be sneaky. You have to go fast. But one additional thing I'd like to add, if you want to learn how to play against druids, just watch Waz's stream. He has this weak aura that calculates the HPS on every enemy target and displays it next to its frame on Gladius. So he can tell who has the most hots by just looking at his Gladius, and whatever target has the least HPS, that's the target he swaps to. That's a good way to play against druids. Just like see who's taking the most healing, swap off that target.
That's smart.
Yes.
Wow.
That is very smart. I mean, from what I can remember, in the early iterations of the game, it was always kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, swap off the hots, swap onto the target that doesn't have anything, because that forces mana to be used, and it forces them to kind of, like re-put up all the hots on, and then kind of go from there. So it's definitely a viable strategy. I mean, swapping to a Resto Druid with no trinket, with no hots on him is just, in a kidney shot, was just, GG, that was it.
Indeed.
But anyway, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I think much like the Demon Hunters, you die in stuns, and that's the thing that we need to take away from that. Anyway, we always ask this question. I know, obviously, Big, you are a main host like the rest of us, and this isn't new to you. And you've obviously answered this question multiple times, but I'm once again imploring you and asking you, what is the one thing you would change if you had all the money in the world, all the time, all the power, all the influence in Blizzard?
I have
What was the one thing you changed?
I have a new answer to this question.
Oh.
I've been slowly working on this rogue documentary in the background, and I had sort of a thought recently that, man, there's a lot of interesting storylines you could tell with PvP history, and I was thinking the other day about RBGs during Mists of Pandaria and how crazy it was, because you had 3 sort of comic book villain RBG leaders with Bailamos, ABN, and Daticus, which it was the Wild West of PvP at the time. Anything went, and it was just there was so much drama, so much backstabbing. It was just such an interesting time in PvP, and I was thinking, wow, I wish I had a way to explain this to people. And I think making like these little mini documentaries about WoW would be so fun. And then people would kind of appreciate the game more because they would be learning the history. I think that's the one thing I think that one of the biggest problems with WoW is if you're a new player to WoW, you haven't experienced the history. And I think for players like us who have been playing the game for a long time, we've seen that history, and it's really important to us. And I think that's the reason why we continue to play the game. And so I think the best thing Blizzard could do for the longevity of WoW is to create content about its history, to make people actually care about the past. Because if you care about the past, then you're kind of interested in sort of preserving the future. And so that's my take, is I want to see more content made by Blizzard about the history of WoW and sort of the players, guilds, storylines that have been sort of part of that. So for me, I'm trying to contribute a little bit by doing this thing about rogues, but I think more people should do things like this. And if Blizzard wants to pay me $1 million to go out and do this for a few years, I'll do it, like, for sure.
That sounds like
Cool.
an excellent endeavor. Yeah, I like that idea.
Definitely.
How about you, Jake?
this, I mean, yeah, unlike Big, I actually don't think I have a good one to say that's very out there. I think I would like. I think I'm going to just go with more frequent updates. I'm a big fan of communication. I'm a big fan of the devs giving us a bit more to kind of, let us know that there is an interaction. I think, especially in PvP, because we do feel quite sidelined. I would like more interaction again. I'm once again imploring, once again asking for the PvP devs to communicate with us. So that's what I would be doing.
Okay. Damn it. I was kind of hoping you'd take a little longer. I was still trying to figure out what I want to change. I think in all, I would like to see like, how they have these different PTRs, and they're just like, obviously there's the classic stuff that they're PTRing, there's the next WoW expansion they're PTRing. If they're not going to give us a map editor where we can create community maps, I wish that they had a PTR that was just like that alpha version that Ian talked about on BlizzCon, showing like, an idea for a map, and they're playtesting without any of the graphic stuff to it. It's very raw. I wish there was something like that where it was just like all these like random wacky ideas that we could like also assist in playtesting if we really wanted to. And help participate in that really initial conversation for these maps that apparently they're building. So I think that's what I would like, is not really much of a change, but kind of an addition. All right. I guess on that, we'll go into the PvP news, and then we'll roll this sucker out.
All right. Who ordered up an extra large can of whoop ass?
Alrighty. So PvP news. Was there any big hotfixes lately? I didn't really see anything. Big, did you see any hotfixes?
Yeah, I did. They made my treants into paper mache, But no, I mean, going down the list, there's a nerf to Unholy DKs, a few nerfs to Demon Hunters.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like some nerfs to Marksmanship Hunters.
Yep.
And buffs to Marksmanship Hunters. So the shuffle of their damage toolkit. Buff to Holy Paladin Mana. Buff to Shadow Priest, which probably definitely needed it because I think they were kind of lagging behind. Some general nerfs to Mage with some buffs to Fire Mage. And buffs to Frost Mage as well. And then, let's see, looks like, yeah, Mistweaver nerfed and buffed, it looks like. It looks like they buffed Ancient Teachings for the 11th time, but subsequently nerfed their damage. Sure, why not?
So
King,
I want to say for that one, I saw Mystical make a comment about that, where that's obviously for Fistweavers to reduce the amount of damage that Fistweavers are doing, but he's concerned that makes if you're going to be a casting Mistweaver rather than the Fistweaver, you're not going to be able to do any damage. Like that's you're almost nerfed to the ground. So
rest in peace, casted Mistweaver. Jeez.
Well, they can still sit back and cast. They just can't. They can't assist in any of the kills or anything, which is unfortunate. So
yeah. Going down the list, looks like a nerf to Assassination Rogues, Outlaw Rogues, and Sub Rogues. So I mean that makes sense because they were pretty good. And then some buffs to Ellie Shaman damage. That's cool.
I'm not sure if they really needed that.
Well, they buffed Lightning Bolt and Ice Fury, which are, I think that's good. We were talking about that earlier. Like, for the most part, shamans these days just hop around and use Instacast Lava Burst and Earth Shock. So it's nice to see other parts of their damage kind of maybe getting some attention.
Yeah.
So,
fair.
Yeah.
One other thing I did notice that there was also an issue apparently with Tiger's Peak. So if you were finding you could leave the area early, they fixed that as well.
Oh, okay.
And then they also increased the item level for the duelist and elite PvP gear from all sources. So now you should at least have a worthwhile item level. I'm assuming that's PvE side because PvP doesn't change, right?
So what happened there with that?
What?
Why did they have that situation arise where like people could leave Tiger's Peak early? Because I haven't heard about that.
I don't know. It was probably some, if you like leapt super high, maybe, or if you like did some sort of shimmer or something like that, you're able to get out of the starting area. It was only on Solo Shuffle too. It wasn't on any other arenas.
Okay.
So it's probably
I've had some weird bug where the gate didn't spawn on Blade's Edge. Like there's just random bugs, it seems, and it seems like there's a lot of bugs with this patch too. I know there's a few different rogue bugs, and I mean that's a class I know has a few of them. But yeah, there's always some bugs after the patch. So well, they typically get fixed.
Yeah. Speaking of which, are we going to see any more maps for Solo Shuffle? You think? Like, I thought they were going to add more maps to that pool.
Yeah, I mean, I think they should. I'm trying to think of which ones.
There's a bunch they don't have.
Yeah, they don't have the BFA one, the one with the sharks. I don't remember what it's called. But yeah, there's like 5 or 6 maps that aren't in the rotation.
Something like that. But anyway, I'm just kind of curious. I think overall, most of these buffs and nerfs look good. I can't say they're super heavy. Some of them look kind of heavy initially, but then you realize it's on like a secondary damage side or something like that. I'm hearing Havoc Demon Hunters are still kind of strong, but not as strong as they were last week. So
yeah,
and I think the timing on this was really good that they didn't wait another week. I think that would have been way more detrimental if they had waited one more week. That would have been bad. Okay.
Yeah, because I remember that when that happened with Rhett, it seemed like it took a while for Rhett to be
that was
nerfed.
like 3 weeks or something, wasn't it?
The Red Paladins will tell you they were nerfed instantly, but I don't believe it because they seem to be quite good for a very long period of time, like 4 weeks or something.
It seemed 4.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, at least this was much more reactive, which is good. I don't know if anybody's actually paying attention to Race to World First that listens to the podcast. If you are, you probably already know that Liquid has taken down the 8th boss and are on the final boss right now. So they're in the lead. Last I saw, they are getting it down, I want to say, into the 60s range in health. With I think they have over 50 pulls. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with the EU once they get their reset tomorrow. And they got the reset today. Sorry, so probably some splits in that to finish off some gearing and then pump through the raid one more time.
And just a mini update. It looks like Echo is also now defeated the 8th boss. So now both guilds are going to be on the last boss of the tier. So
ooh, how many more days do you think?
I don't think it dies tomorrow. Maybe it dies tomorrow's things. Well, they always schedule these Race to World First around major holidays. I'd say it dies Friday.
Yeah,
I don't see it dying tomorrow. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if they do any more nerfs or buffs in the middle of the night.
Yeah, no, there's some back and forth between the guilds about the nerfs. So.
Yeah, honestly, I saw that there was something that I think Gingy said, and then another thing that Max has said, but it was basically, I think they're basically saying the same thing, which is, by all means, if you need to nerf or buff something, go for it. Just like the timing of them seems awkward and has bias, where there's some timings that you could find that would be open and transparent and fair to all the Race to World First, not in the middle of somebody's progression while everybody else is sleeping and vice versa or something like that.
Yeah, imperfect. I think it's just gonna be messy no matter what, right? Like
Of course it is.
But I think that's the fun, right? That's
everything gets messy though when people are like super invested and passionate about something, and there's changes that are implemented. That
yeah.
I mean, yeah. Anyway, last but not least, in case anybody's interested, 10.2.5 is up on the PTR already and live. So if you want to go play the next coming content, so that's going to include some dragon flying out in the outlands, a bunch of other updates, including I think there's some more class tuning. So like Preservation Evoker, Monk has a bit, Shaman has a slight change in Earth, Fire, and Storm elementals. And I think it's just their size and how they look. But yeah, it's just some graphical stuff on that. Anyway, I think that's about it that we have for the news. So quickly, just to you, Big first. Any shout outs you want to give?
Any shoutouts? Shoutouts to Gizmo, who I messaged you about. Gizmo's been making add-ons. He made me an add-on. I haven't had time to test yet, but the add-on basically, if a enemy player's major cooldown is coming up in the next 5 seconds, it'll start flashing that cooldown above their nameplate, which I think is a pretty cool idea for an add-on. So, like, say a rogue has kidney shot up in 5 seconds, well, you can see it like flashing above their nameplate. Anyway, so shout out to Gizmo for working on add-ons. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And if anybody doesn't know, Gizmo is a person, I think, through the Skill Capped Discord who started getting into PvP. What was it, last season? And
season 1 of Dragonflight, yeah.
Okay, so basically in this expansion then, but season 1, and has been doing really well. And as he's been finding things that are causing, be it basically UI obstacles to understanding the game, he's basically been just rewriting add-ons to fix those obstacles, which is really kind of cool. Like you said, I think he's kind of like hacking solo shuffle by using the UI.
Yeah, he has this add-on that when you're targeting someone, it displays 2 bars. There's a green bar going up and a red bar going up. And the red bar represents the damage the target is taking. The green bar represents the healing they're taking. So you can kind of see when you're behind, you know? You're like, oh, like I need to step up the healing now. It's like, yeah, he's kind of almost engineering his way through PvP. Just kind of, he finds little obstacles and he makes these little tiny add-ons to solve those obstacles. I think it's really cool.
That is very cool. I like it. Hopefully make some of those public. I think there'd be some other people that really enjoy those.
Yes.
Jake, how about you? Any shout outs?
I'm gonna think just for a second because I was thinking about it and I'm trying to think. I've shouted out a lot of people recently. And I'm trying to think. You know what? Actually, I am going to shout out my Dungeons and Dragons family, my team, the guys that I play with. I played with them for I think what must be about 7 or 8 years now. And we literally just finished our third campaign. Third campaign, which was awesome. And bear in mind that these games last. You play them for like a year and a half, 2 years. It was such great fun. And a big shout out to them because it's always wonderful. A really wonderful time playing that. So that's lots of fun.
I will really quickly link Gizmo's add-ons in chat. He has a very functional one for solo shuffle where you type /chat and it disables your chat for the duration of the solo shuffle.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's extremely helpful, especially some of the stuff that comes up in chat.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna do a quick shout out to Skill Capped because obviously we have our affiliate link with them. So if you want a discount to subscribe, go to our show notes. There's a link there at the bottom for that. Or go to any other places where we spam about, on Twitter and that, or even in the WoW World of PvP subreddit there. But just shout out to them because not only are you guys they're making really good PvP stuff, but now they got all their PvE stuff coming up online. So if you want to get into Mythic Pluses and that, so pretty much the one-stop shop for definitive rating increase through learning. So
yes,
indeed. All right. What's left to that's just you putting more things into the that's awesome. Yeah, if you guys want, you click on those links that Big's dropping in chat. Actually, I'll throw in the other one that we have for our pricing. And in the meantime, Big, can you tell people where to find us?
Oh, absolutely, I can. You can contact us directly with a tweet to @technically_PvP or by an email to technicallypvp@gmail.com. You can also join our discussions on the Bonus Roll Productions Discord.
And you can also visit the Bonus Roll website to find the podcast directory with us and many other great shows at www.bonusroll.gg. This directory also has a review system, so make sure you head on over there and tell everyone what you think of your favorite shows, including our own.
Indeed. And as always, links for everything we talked about are going to be in the show notes. Thank you everyone for listening, and we'll chat with you next time. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Yeah.